This video is brought to you by ModFind. ModFind is an automotive marketplace for like-minded enthusiasts to buy and sell parts, as well as share listings for cash. But what separates ModFind from other marketplace platforms is the fact that it's catered to car enthusiasts, so you're buying from and selling to like-minded car nuts and not randos on Facebook Marketplace. So if you're looking to either buy or sell parts of any kind, engine parts, wheels, brakes, check out ModFind. This way, you can join the growing community of enthusiasts in your area. Hello everyone and welcome back to the BMWBLOG Podcast. This is episode 62 and today we have Joe Achilles and we're going to talk about some interesting things. He's got a new M3 on the way. He is currently driving a AC Schnitzer tuned Z4 and we'll talk about the M240i and some new electric cars. So hi Joe, thanks for joining us.
Absolute pleasure. Hope you're well, guys. It's great to be back on the podcast.
Yeah, thanks for making the time. Always appreciate it. Always good to talk to you. I mean, I feel like we have so many good topics usually, so it's fun having you back. It's not like we're lacking guests. It's nice having you.
Yeah. Also,
good to hear.
You might be our. Have we had you on more than anyone else? Actually, this is your third time, I think, and I think that's more than anyone else.
Probably, yeah. I think we had it in 3 times. I think so, yeah.
It's our longest running.
Cool.
You're part of the team now, Joe.
Yeah.
Oh, that's an honor. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
All right. So the first thing I wanted to ask you about, because this is something I find really interesting, is so you had a BMW M3 competition. You were actually one of the first, I don't want to say YouTubers, but one of the first, automotive media people to buy one. And now you're trading it in for another M3. So tell us a little about that.
Yeah. So, without sounding like a typical YouTuber that trades their cars in every 2 months and appears to buy a new car every couple of months, there's 2 reasons really. We'll go into depth about both of them, but quickly, the first one is I spent a week with a M3 G80 xDrive press car and absolutely loved it and couldn't see that there was any negatives, only positives over the rear-wheel drive.
Right.
That's coming from someone who is born and bred. I've got rear-wheel drive in my blood, but you can still obviously decouple the front axle, etc. There was that reason, but the other reason that really swayed me is something that I think the whole world is sort of going through at the moment. Is the used market has gone a little bit crazy because of the shortage of new cars, and so although my M3 is nearly 10 months old and nearly 10,000 miles in it, which is usually the period of time that something like an M3 would lose so much money out of the forecourt. It hasn't lost anything, essentially. So I can chop that in because it's finance. I can trade that in and jump straight into an xDrive for next to nothing. So, for me, the fact that it's a better car, it's good content for the channel, it's going to be a different spec. It's all kind of a no-brainer, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it's nice to have that financially work out well too. It's not just like you're just doing it for the clicks, but it really is kind of a smart thing to do. You're actually getting a car that'll probably be better for you in the long run, and it's financially kind of smart. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. Joe, let me ask you this before we jump into the the M3 xDrive and what you like about the car. Are the used car prices really crazy in the UK market too? Because in the US we see insane prices right now, and we're talking one M cars being sold for over 100K. We see E92 M3s reaching 90K, or I've seen M2 competitions from 2019 or even a little bit older selling for more than the sticker price when it was new. So I don't know what's going on there, but here it's absolutely crazy. You can make a lot of money today on any used car.
Yeah.
Yes, it's exactly the same here. I speak to friends in Australia, Spain, Germany. I think it's really happening everywhere. We all have so many used cars that are always sitting somewhere on the marketplace. And I think we're normally spoiled for choice. And especially here in the UK, we have this obsession with buying new cars every 2 or 3 years or financing new cars. So we always end up with loads, like tens of thousands of used or nearly new cars, and as a result their residuals just go down. But I think because there's no new cars, or the new car supply has been really bad over the past, let's say, 9 to 12 months, suddenly the used car market has flourished, and I know. Yeah, it's an interesting time. It's calming down a bit now. I think if we go back to September, October last year, it was insane. As you say, like prices of everything were just M2 competitions. I was offered by, let's say, a company like We Buy Any Car, who are like they basically offer you a price online for your car. You just put in your registration, and you do it all the time just to get an idea of how your car value is going. And I picked up my M2 competition March last year. I bought it off the finance company. And by about September, it had gone up about £15,000. Awesome. And we're talking about a car that's valued at 50 grand. So that's a massive, what's that, 30% or something. In that short time. And that was through a company that would normally undercut, wouldn't give you a very good price for your car. So I could probably... but that's settled down now a little bit. But prices, as you say, for 1Ms are at their all-time highest. E92s are starting to go up. I was actually looking at E92s last night because they're still reasonably priced, and they are the next M3 to go up. They have to be because, but there's still lots on the internet. So I think prices are still being kept down, but sooner or later they'll start going up because. I don't know if you're like me. I appreciate an E92 more now when I see one than I did when they were new.
Sure.
So
that's really interesting. It's actually interesting you said the M2, the value has jumped up as well. It's crazy how so many people are. Typically, cars are not good investments. They're really usually bad investments. But right now it's the opposite. It's kind of funny. So just to jump back to the M3. So you said you test drove the M3 xDrive. We actually did as well, and we felt the exact same way. That it's all the upsides of all-wheel drive, right? You have the added grip, you have the added power, you have the stability in bad weather, but none of the downsides. Like it doesn't feel typically all-wheel drive. It doesn't understeer at all. The front end is every bit as precise as the rear drive car, and then like you said, you could decouple the axle. So I actually thought that it was, it doesn't even make sense to get the rear-wheel drive car anymore because it's just that good. Did you feel the same way? Did you feel like it's the better car, or was it more of a product of like, I can do this because of the finances and, it will help, or was it like this is the better car?
It was actually the other way around. After I'd driven it, I immediately spoke to Tony and it was like, mate, where do I stand with mine? Like, how much is it going to cost me to get into the car? So it was the fact that the car was better. And we're talking, small areas, although when I had it towards the end of last year, it was out, it was pretty slimy and wintry outside. So you could say ideal xDrive conditions. Right. And it really did overshadow my car in that sense. But I just think, as you said, I was expecting to get into it, and I know it was 50 odd kilos heavier. So I thought, okay, maybe feel a bit heavier. But what I was most concerned about was that the rear wheel drive car doesn't have the best steering feel in the world, but it's okay. And I thought the xDrive, that tiny bit of feel is going to be gone because of the front drive shafts and stuff. But actually, it felt exactly the same jumping back to back. And then you factor in all the extra grip, and as you say, the massively rear bias MX drive. Anyone that says that that's not a true M car, I mean, they haven't. It's like when the F90 M5 came out and people were uproar about, oh my god, it should be rear wheel drive. It's like, no, drive one, then come and tell me that, because that system is amazing, even in normal four wheel drive sport. Even more rear bias, and then obviously you decouple the front axle altogether. And I've had a few people that said, yeah, but if you decouple the front axle in the M3, you then apparently can't play the traction control. But if you're going to decouple the front axle in an xDrive car, you're only doing it for one reason, and that's to do big skids, so you don't need traction control. So I don't understand that argument. And then the price, if you're looking at the retail price in this country, it's about $2,500 or $3,000 between the rear wheel drive and the xDrive. And when you finance the cars, and you get better residuals on the xDrive. So actually, I'm guessing if you were to spec both cars up, they'd cost basically the same in terms of monthlies. And it's kind of a no-brainer to me. So I reckon they'll phase the rear wheel drive version out by, I reckon, summertime over here. Sad to say that, but at the same time, it's like I personally can't see why. What's the point? That there is no point in having it, especially if it doesn't sell. Then get rid of it.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think the weight difference, you mentioned that, I don't think it's that significant considering how heavy the M3 and M4 already is. So, I mean, if you're talking about like an older car, I mean, that might sound like a lot of kilos, but for the new cars, it's really negligible. I don't think, like, unless you're a pro driver and you go like on a track and you're trying to get the best times, I don't think you'll notice that. And I had a chance to actually drive both back to back on the track too. And then with some pro drivers, Bill Oberlin and John Edwards, and they said the same thing. Normal people will not be able to tell the difference. And actually, even on track, they were raving about how much more fun it is to drive the xDrive because you got all this extra grip and you can really corner late and you can do all the crazy stuff that, you know, you might not be able to do with the rear wheel drive being so heavy too. So even them, they actually loved it. And we did a drag race in between the two, and I mean, clearly the xDrive, you know, was by a car length, if not more, actually faster.
Yeah, it's insane off the line, isn't it? That first sort of 0 to 30 miles an hour is just, it's so fast. That
well, it
car.
starts in first gear too, right? Because the rear-wheel drive car starts in second on the launch, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Plus did a
That
rollout.
is true.
I think we did a rollout to see if the xDrive will be kind of canceled out by the by the rollout, but you know, after about to say 10, 20 yards, the xDrive just kicked in and had so much more grip.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, it's insane. So that's pretty. So not only did you do that though, but you went for a really different spec because your M3 competition, the regular rear-wheel drive one, was a really interesting color spec. You know, the Portimao blue, the Kyalami orange you had interior.
Exactly.
Right. So that was a really really good-looking spec. So you went different on this one though. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, so I mean that was a bit of a stab in the dark, the Portimao blue and Kyalami orange, and obviously I knew Portimao blue from regular 3 Series,
right?
And I'd seen the Kyalami orange leather somewhere, I can't remember, in the studio or something, and I thought I want to go a bit leery, and I think orange and blue go together. Picked that up, super happy with it. Like genuinely, when I saw it for the first time, I was like, yeah, this is cool. It got massive, really positive feedback online as well. And I was just really glad that I went down that route. Quick funny story about that, actually. And I'm not going to say who said it because it might get them in trouble. But someone at BMW UK press team basically told me a few months ago that Top Gear were trying to get hold of a long-termer off BMW UK, an xDrive and a rear-wheel drive to do some comparisons. And when they offered them a Portimao blue car, whoever it was, I don't know who it was at Top Gear, but they basically turned around and said, no, we don't want a Joe Achilles Spec M3. So I was like, oh, I've made it. Right? If someone at Top Gear, if my car is that, that covered, then yeah, so that was pretty cool. It's made me quite happy.
That's awesome.
But yeah, I had a bit of a snigger. But in terms of, changing specs, so obviously, I think I kind of said it in my spec-in video in the sense that if it was a private car and I wasn't on the internet, then I probably would consider going down the same spec because actually my other half loves the Portimao blue with Kyalami, and so I would maybe consider doing the same. But obviously, as it's a totally different car, if I did go same spec, it wouldn't do well on the channel. So it was more of a channel-based decision that I thought I'd change the spec. But actually, I'm really glad that I have now because when it does arrive, as you know, there's no differences aesthetically, is there? There's not there's nothing like a badge. No, so it'd be like having exactly the same car. So actually, I've gone for a very, very different. I've gone for Dravit grey and Fiona red interior, and yeah, I think that's going to be. It's going to be different. It's going to be cool, and then obviously it's all working up towards when I can order my touring. So playing around with a couple of different specs, it will give me more of an idea of what to go for with that because that's going to be the keeper. Can't wait for that. Whenever that will turn up, I reckon it's still 12 months away at least over here. But looking forward to that.
If you get that car, I will come down to the UK honestly and. Do something together because I've heard that the first allocations for the M3 Touring they're already sold out globally. So
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
actually
Well, I know
wondering how
quite a
many.
few.
Yeah.
I think, well, Tony, my salesman, he took deposits. I mean, unofficial deposits, but he's been taking deposits on the touring for a couple of years now.
Wow.
Like literally, as soon as there was like whispers of it, you know, people you can walk into your dealer and say, "Here's a couple of grand. I think there's going to be a M3 touring. Please hold an allocation." So yeah, I think it's going to be a pretty pretty exciting car and something that's going to be very popular. Are you even getting them in the States?
Nope.
Fortunately not, and actually, it's a question that we get asked all the time, and we did write an article actually to kind of explain why, because I asked Frank Van Meel, the MCO, what's the reason behind that, and apparently, to kind of reiterate what we wrote, is the fact that when the 3 Series was launched and the 3 Series Touring, there was never an intention to bring that car to the U.S. So the body style, or the chassis was not homologated for U.S. crash standards. So basically, that's the reason why they can't bring the M3 Touring. I think looking back, I think they kind of wish they did that so they can bring the M3 Touring here, because it's going to be such a good marketing tool. Not necessarily, it's not going to move the needle when it comes to revenue probably, but it's such an amazing marketing tool. So that was the reason why. They didn't really say, okay, well, we kind of wish we didn't do that, but I got that feeling that I kind of wish we could have brought this car here. I did try to pitch them, on bringing a car here as a show car, like just bring it, and show it at different BMW events or M gatherings throughout the year, because it's still such a good marketing tool, regardless if you get a car here, and they can still get a lot of free press out of it by just seeing the car. So,
bring it to just let us drive it on track, of course, not on public roads, of course not.
That would be cool. But I think it'll be quite limited, because from what I know, it's got a very short production run compared to the regular sedan and coupe and convertible, because it comes out next year, and I think they're supposed to be phased out by 2026 maybe. So it's not artificially limited. It's really just limited by the production schedule, really. So I don't think the UK market will probably get that many. I'm assuming in the hundreds, probably. In Germany probably gets the rest, so it'll be quite rare. So it's definitely a keeper for sure.
Yeah, if you get one, you can never ever get rid of it, ever.
Exactly.
No, well, I really want to go individual. I'm actually talking to some of the guys at BMW M about which way to go, and I think because of that reason, I want to go some form of individual on it and go a little bit crazy, so it's not it's sort of out there a bit. But you guys are obviously welcome. Yeah, you're welcome to come over, and I know we've been saying that for a while, but obviously,
this one is worth it.
Keys are yours.
This one is absolutely worth it.
I'll book a flight right away, man.
Yeah,
M3 touring, first ever. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
But
you can bring as much luggage as you want, because massive boot. I can pick you up. Yeah, easy. Yeah,
that's great.
Exactly. And honestly, you're making the right choice, not because it's limited now, but because I think that we will not see an M3 Touring in that configuration ever again, right? I don't think we'll ever see a M3 Touring with a pure 6-cylinder engine like most of the other M cars. So just for that fact, it's gonna be a really iconic car in 10 years from now, if not more.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool.
All right. So, did you have a question, Mauricio?
No.
Oh, okay. I also wanted to talk to you about, so in the interim between your M3 competition and your M3 xDrive, you have a very, very interesting car that you're daily driving, kind of like on loan from the dealership. It's one that people seem to have completely forgotten about, but really deserves a lot more praise than it's getting. So explain your kind of interim car for the moment.
Yeah, so I've got a very good relationship with my dealership, and when I was talking to Tony about chopping my old M3 in, it made sense that I got it to him earlier rather than later, so it didn't take over 10,000 miles for used values, etc. And he said to me at the time, look, I'll find something to put you in. I'll find a nice demo that you can roll around the winter for 5-6 weeks in, which for me is great because, easier, probably cheaper to run, etc. And then closer to the time, he said, "Oh, actually, I've got a Z4 for you, a Z4 M40i, which actually belonged to one of his colleagues, a guy called David King, who unfortunately just passed away just before Christmas. So it was his demo. David's a good friend of mine. It was his demo for a few weeks only. So there was kind of a sentimental thing there, because Tony didn't want to put this particular car straight up on the forecourt and sell it. Right. He wanted it to live on. So it all kind of tied together, and we decided, you know what, it would be good that I run it and do some videos, in memory of David and enjoy the car. But what I didn't realise was that it's a Z4 M40i underneath, but it's got basically all the AC Schnitzer kit thrown at it. So it has the full coilover suspension kit. It has their tuning box, which obviously retains the BMW warranty. And it also has their axle back system, their exhaust, because in the UK we have the dreaded OPF filters, so they're still in place, but we just get a bit more sound. So it probably brings it up to a similar level to what your stock Z4 M40i sounds like, plus some body kit on the car. But so it looks slammed. It looks like it would be awful for a UK road, because our roads are terrible, especially around where I live. So I was kind of dreading, the ride quality and the fact that it might be very limited. But it took me about 200 meters to realize that the suspension, the suspension setup is unbelievable. The car is a bit low, and I'm hitting the splitter a little on a few things, but the ride quality is amazing. It sounds brilliant, and it goes obviously with the tuning kit. We all know the B58. It's so reserved in many sort of standard outputs. It feels like a rocket ship. Obviously, they've got a limit slip diff as standard, that model. And it's really good. And I'm not a convertible fanboy. I never have been. But in a few nice wintry days we've had sun out, I've literally hat on, scarf, heated seat. And I've had some of the best drives. I've had it about 2.5 weeks now. And Lou and I went out on a couple of weekends ago. We went out from like dusk till dawn. It's roof down, and just had such a good day. And it's just a brilliant car. And I think it's just a forgotten. I think, there's none on the UK roads. I know of one in my local area, but aside from that, I couldn't tell you where any others are. Yeah. And I think value-wise, the performance, the package, the build quality, the interior feels special compared to a 3-4 Series. The dash has got some styling on it, and the seats are not, everything about it's great. It's not the most practical thing in the world, but it's a 2-seater sports car convertible. So what to expect? But I'm really enjoying my time with it. I've even been on the internet looking at like 2019, but again, the used ones, they're holding such good value that, a 3-year-old one is not much cheaper than a brand new one at the moment. So really pleasantly surprised by this Z4. I'm really, really enjoying it.
Yeah, they're great cars, surprisingly so, and totally forgotten. It's awesome that you're driving something, to kind of honor your friend and get some content out of that, and kind of show it off a little bit. But it's also funny because the first thing you said, first thing I thought of when you said that they were going to lend you a Z4 was like, great winter vehicle, right? A tiny rear-wheel drive convertible sports car, great winter loaner. But it's so fun to drive in such a silly, different way than anything else. Like, an M3 or M4 feels very serious, very very technical, very high performance. But the Z4 M40i, I mean, it's a little hooligan muscle car thing. It's so light and it's so powerful that it just kind of wants to tear its tires to pieces. And I remember testing one, and I felt the same way. I was like, I don't know if I'm going to like this, but I came away, just so impressed. And it's such a underrated little gem of a car that I can only imagine what an AC Schnitzer tuned one feels like. So that's an awesome little winter car to beat around in. That's cool.
And not to be on a dead horse, but that's another car that that's a keeper for sure. I mean, honestly, I think the only reason why they were able to make it is because of the collaboration or the partnership with Toyota. And I feel like, if that partnership would have started maybe, 2-3 years ago, the car would have not happened because it's such a low volume car. But to me, out of the cars that I've been all the BMW cars that I've been driving the last few years, I feel like it's one of the best, if not up there with the M2 competition, honestly, on the M2 CS. But it's such a gem. I mean, honestly, it's the perfect size. Like you said, especially on that M40i, it's so quick. It just feels like a pure BMW, honestly. Even the steering, if I remember, I drove it somewhere in Europe. It's really good, actually, compared to anything else. And once again, I think that's going to be like another, classic car in the future. And I think last year or like 2 years ago when it came out, they weren't really selling. I think you could have picked one up for like, pretty affordable price. And you're right, I don't see too many either. I mean, honestly, in Chicago, especially with the weather, I probably saw one in the last few years. But I love that car too, honestly. And I'm not a convertible guy, either, or roadster guy either. So yeah,
it's funny. I think I'm the only like convertible fan when it comes to sports car. I like convertibles. I don't know why. And
I feel like it's messing with my hair all the time. I guess that's my first thing. I remember trying to go to a dinner with a convertible. It was like somewhere like Pebble Beach or somewhere. And by the time that I would get there, I would have this, curly haircut, or whatever. It was just terrible. So I guess to me that was the main, thing. But I do enjoy
feel your pain, Horatio.
Yeah.
I hear you, Joe. I hear you, but I'm getting there too. I'm slowly starting to lose my hair too. So
yeah, I am too at a frighteningly young age. So I'm just
don't
kind
have to worry about that much.
Trying to wear haircuts that hide it. So maybe the convertible is probably a good idea. Just trash my hair up.
I know summertime it's fun to have a nice open top. Honestly, it's especially if you're in a nice place like maybe Spain, Portugal, or France. It's always nice to have.
I wouldn't. I mean, but ironically, you say about the winter, and that's exactly what I thought when Tony said to me. I was like, wait a second, it's winter. But then, I mean, I've been on plenty of press trips in Spain, let's say with BMW, and you're in an M8 cab, and it's like, and you have the roof off, and it's 35 degrees. 20 minutes later, you've got a headache, you're not feeling good, you're getting sunburned, so you actually end up putting the roof on. Whereas the winter, as long as it's not raining, you can rug up warm and kind of control the environment, and it feels great. I'm really, really impressed. But as you say, with the Supra tie up there, you could feel that it's a real bit of kit, and you get the feeling that BMW probably have never broken much profit on that car, because you just don't see enough of them about. But if anyone's listening and considering one, honestly, fantastic car. And I know when I went to the launch, which was exactly 3 years ago, not just the M40i is brilliant, but the 20 and the 30i, so the B48s, the front end, because there's much less engine and intercoolers and stuff there. I remember jumping in those and thinking, God, the front end on them were better than the M40i, and the whole car felt more agile. But then you haven't got the brilliant B58, which is a big part. I think open top motoring, if you've got that exhaust note and the 6-pot, to me, that's a massive part of that car. So it's swings and roundabouts, but the cheaper models are really good too. So big up the Z4 or the Z4 as you guys call it.
I keep saying sorry. I keep
that's all right.
Actually, you're right. The little 4-cylinder one's pretty good. I actually spent about like 2.5 weeks in different versions. I had the M40i for a couple of days, but until I realized that the press loaner they gave me had one completely bald rear tire, and I was like, I'm not gonna kill myself in this, so can you put new tires on? So they did. BMW took it back and they gave me a 30i model to drive for a week. When they put the tires back on the M40, they gave it back, so I had like 2 weeks driving them back to back. And even the small 4-cylinder one's really fun. Like you said, it's lighter on the front end. It just kind of feels a little easier to push hard. You're not too scared of spinning it. It's a fun little car. Like you said, whoever's looking into them, I don't know if I'd buy one over a Porsche Boxster. That'd be close, but it's fun.
But then I think over here you're looking at nearly twice the money for a Boxster GTS.
Really?
Let's say the GTS 4-litre.
Yeah.
I guess if you're comparing like for like, because then the S is only a 4-pot, and but I think they both offer. I said it in my first drive video that I think, although let's say with the AC Schnitzer kit, etc., it's similar price, it's still less than a GTS. They both offer very different cars. Like if I was in the Alps now, going for a flat out drive, I'd take the GTS every day of the week. But the Z4 is almost like a sports car / GT car that has no roof. It's a very comfortable cruising. It's a bit of a brute, like you said. It's got all these little sort of, and yeah, so it's a different proposition to a GTS, and I think that's again what makes it so good is it's a slightly toned down GTS, but every bit is quick in a straight line, for sure.
Yeah, and you nailed also the experience with the 4-cylinder versus the 6. I had the same experience in the new 2 Series, and we kind of lead into that topic now. But I had the same experience when I drove the cars on the track once again, and I feel like the 4-cylinder was such a pure car. It felt a lot more analog, not as digital as the the B58 engine. So they were quite different, but I don't think you can go wrong with the 4-cylinder, either a 2 Series or a Z4 also, because that engine is quite good, and even though you're not getting the same sound, you are getting a little bit of a different, or in some cases maybe better driving experience.
Yeah, it's very interesting. It is, as you say, I had the same experience this time last year. I had a 420i long-termer. I wanted initially, I was hoping to get an M440i, but I'd actually just jumped out of an M440i press car that I had for a few days into the 420i. And the first thing I noticed was the 420i had better steering and the front end felt better than the M440i, which is just crazy when you think about it. But actually, it makes sense as well because the lack of weight, the lack of drivetrain in the front, etc. So yeah, there's always that's a good thing. I think if you can't, let's say, afford to go for the big one, or the big engine doesn't make sense in your world and what you use the car for, you still get those brilliant driving dynamics, and sometimes even better than the flagship models. So yeah,
right,
yeah, exactly. And I feel like the 230i, because I don't think the Z4 only sells as the M40i in the US, right, Nico?
No,
actually, no,
they
do have the 30i, right? So I think both of them, the Z4 and also the 230i Coupe, I feel like they're ideal entry-level cars, basically, into the BMW brand. And I've said that in my video also. If you want to get into the BMW brand, and kind of experience what the brand is all about, but you don't want to spend too much money, you don't have a lot of money to do that, I feel like those two cars, especially the 230i Coupe, are ideal. I don't see any other car being sold here that will actually, fill that role. And I mean, of course, they're SUVs that might be a little bit cheaper, but it's not a, purebred BMW, basically.
Yeah.
You bring up an interesting point with the 230i. So a while back we had journalist Jason Camisa on, and he said something that I've stuck with me ever since. He said BMW is a 2002 company, right? Like that's what they made their, that's what BMW made their name with, was the 2002 back, in the 60s. And, that was a small 4-cylinder little coupe. It wasn't very fast, but it handled really well. It was built, really, really well. It was comfortable. And that's sort of what the 230i is to me. It's kind of like, it's small, it's, honest, it's just a little 4-cylinder, but it's still very fun. It still gives you all the qualities that you want in a BMW. And it doesn't, BMWs aren't always about big performance. They're not always about that. So I kind of like the little small 4-cylinder ones as well.
Yeah, definitely. I've only driven the M240i of the new 2 Series. But it's great to hear you both saying that the 230, we're also going to get a 220i here, which I struggle to get my head around the 20i in the UK, because the same with that 420i, because it's the 30i is fractionally more expensive, like $2,500, and it's the same engine, but it's just a better tune. The 20i just feels very underpowered. You can feel it being cut off and strangled everywhere. So hopefully I'll get to try the 230i, because I think that would be. Do you get that? You don't get that in a manual option, I suppose, do you? Just auto. Okay.
Yeah.
That makes
us Americans don't like manuals.
America. Well, yeah. What about
America.
the E60 manual?
Yeah, we did get that. That was a long time ago, though. That was a while.
Yeah.
That was a while back. Yeah.
And an F10 as well, I think.
Yeah, the F10. We were actually, I think, the only market that had the F10 the manual, I think.
Yeah.
If I'm not mistaken. And it's funny though. I was just thinking this literally a few hours ago. I just booked a press car for like late April. The new Cadillac CT5V Blackwing, which is a 670 horsepower rear-wheel drive sedan made in America, and it comes with a manual. So I guess so why don't we get other manuals? We're making one with a manual. Why can't we get some German manuals? So it's we're weird. We're weird here in America. We don't know what the hell.
No, I mean, to trace back, honestly, Nico, I feel like it's not like the Americans don't like manuals. I feel like the BMW M purists in the US are the ones keeping the manuals alive in M cars. The take rate on the M3 and M4, it's for manuals, it's the highest in the whole world in the US, basically. And that's kind of the only reason why the manuals are still around in some of the M cars. So basically, we do buy a lot more M car with manuals. Just not the general population really doesn't drive a lot of manuals, but the purists absolutely love it. So that's why it's not uncommon to see here quite a few M2s also with manual and all of that. Even when I was searching for a friend recently, he bought an M2 competition, and most of the cars that I saw out there, they were with the 6-speed manual.
Yeah,
which is quite interesting.
I wonder what the take rate is on M performance cars. Like, if they were to offer a manual in the M240i. Or something like that. I wonder if it would sell well, because it's still kind of an enthusiast car, it's still kind of one that car fans like to buy. So I'm curious about that. That would be interesting. But we don't get it. We don't. It's auto only here. Is it? Do you get a manual in the UK for any 2 Series?
No, and we don't. We don't even get the M3 or M4 in a manual option.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah, so I'm hearing the new M2. Some people are telling me that we are going to get it in a manual option. Others are telling me that we're not. So yeah, we'll have to see. It was actually it's quite a funny story. That's very BMW relevant. I was in BMW M. I was at the headquarters. I think September, October last year. And I was having a look around and being shown some amazing stuff that I can't talk about. Anyway, next thing I've been told that Marcus Flash wanted to say hi. So wander into his office, and most amazing office. And I'm really shy and like, oh my God, starstruck. And we're talking away, but he was lovely and made me feel very at home straight away. Anyway, we were talking about the manuals and the love for manual and the fact that I had an M4 press car from Germany. And in manual, and he was like, "Oh, why did you ask for the manual specifically?" And I said, "Oh, well, the UK market don't get it." And he wasn't really fully aware of that. And he was like, "Oh, okay, I didn't know that." He said that the M2 is coming manual, and I'd been told at that point that the M2 definitely was only going to be an auto in the UK. And so I was like, "No, I've been told that the M2, the incoming M2, is going to be auto only." And his face was just like, oh, and he got his notepad out and he just writes a little note, and he's like, right, that's my job for the rest of the week, to make sure that the UK get him. And it was like, I don't know if that was just him, like, doing it for sort of shits and giggles, but he seemed pretty like, what? No, because they homologate these cars for, like the current M3 and M4, I think because it's homologated for Australia, it's the same. So it's the same as the UK. So essentially, it doesn't cost more to send them to the UK. You just have to have enough uptake for BMW UK to say, right, yeah, it's worth it. Yep. And look, the previous generation, the F80 and the F82, towards the end of their life cycle, 2017, 2018, 19, there was no uptake on manuals. I think it was like 2%. So I can understand from a business point of view, unfortunately, that it does make sense. But I think it's so important that the incoming M2 does come as a manual, because it just means that, it's not going to push those last manual hardcore customers over to Porsche to buy a Boxster or something. So yeah, and it make me happy personally. Right. So
well, also, you guys heard it here first. If they sell a manual in the UK, it's because of Joe Achilles. He saved the manual in the UK.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I don't think people know how actually the ordering process works. So it's all country based, right? So there is a product team in every country or HQ in that country, and all they do is look at the data basically, and that's how make decisions on which cars should come, which configuration, and all of that. So it's not like BMW M doesn't want to send the cars there. It's really just a local team that decides what would sell best, and that applies in the US also. So
Yeah.
But yeah, no, absolutely. The M2 will definitely come with a manual. We've been writing about that for many years. I think we broke the news quite some time ago.
Do you know if it will be a manual in all markets or just, you know?
No, I mean, so they offer both options, right? So you'll be based on the market, whatever allocation they want to go for, right? So it's not like, I'm pretty sure the BMW M will offer, you know, a certain amount of allocation for manual versus auto. Probably the auto will be, you know, a higher allocation. So some countries might just say, wait, we want to get more products. So in that case, we're going to order more automatic or all automatic. So it's just going to come down to basically the data, and they look at the data quite a lot when they make decisions, especially at BMW M. They really use data quite a bit. I feel like Marcus, you know, also went with a little bit with instinct sometimes, especially when it comes to M3 touring and that. But overall, you know, that's their job, to look at data and decide what cars to build and what not to build. And yeah, and you're right about Marcus. He's such a great guy. We had a chat also in October. We went to Villa d'Este and we had dinner, and yeah, we talked about manuals and all of that. And he's such a, you know, BMW enthusiast at heart, really. And
yeah,
great guy.
Well, he's a proper. So I love MotoGP. Ironically, I'm a car guy, but my favourite motorsport is MotoGP, so bikes.
Nice.
And when I walked into his office, there was a really interesting looking bike off to the left next to his desk. That was kind of like the main thing in his office. And so I'm looking at it, and after we got talking, I was like, what is that? Like, is it a super bike? Or he said, no, it's a MotoGP bike. And I was like, what? MotoGP, BMW? I always find the BMW relationship with MotoGP slightly odd in the sense that they sponsor it. They're one of the main headline sponsors, but they don't have any bikes on the grid. Anyway, back in 2007, they entered 2 bikes, but right at the start of the season, they decided to pull the whole sort of program. So the bikes were ready. They'd been testing all the year before. They produced these amazing bikes and then decided, actually, we're not going to enter. So there's 2 of them, one somewhere else and one was in his office. But these are like factory fresh, haven't turned a wheel, just sitting there. And I was like, oh, wow, that's a piece of art, like something that's real, but actually never got used. I mean, but yeah, it was really interesting talking to him about the bikes. And yeah, you can see he's just anything with a motor. It's like all of us, we're all kids at heart and get excited by fast, loud things with motors on them.
Yep.
I got to talk to Martin at BMW M to see if we can do a story on that bike. Now I'm interested.
Yeah, definitely you should. Yeah. Mark.
When is the embargo expiring on the stuff that you saw?
Well,
I want to know what you know, because I know also. So
yeah.
I'm trying to say.
Well, some of it's expiring, you know, various points throughout this year, but some of it is stuff that never, unfortunately, made it to production. And I really hope that one day somebody is able to sort of show the world some of these things, some of these machines, stuff that, you know.
They do that.
Yeah,
they do that. Actually, my next trip to Munich, I'm planning on going back to their secret garage. I think actually, you know, not to brag, but we're the first ones to actually put a video out on the BMW secret garage. I don't know, like over 12, 13 years ago when there was no YouTube.
Oh,
really,
wow.
Or it barely just started. Yeah, I remember filming with this, you know, crappy quality camera. And yeah, we're granted a tour of this secret garage where you can see all these prototypes that never really made it to production.
Yep.
And some of them were in the garage, some of them were in some of the workshops. They were all over the place, honestly.
Yeah.
And that's what they do. They have a bunch of, you know, concept cars built out, and if they don't get approved, they just kind of save them and store them. But it's not like a secret museum. It's really just a parking garage. That was the crazy part. Like literally a normal parking garage with terrible lighting and all of that. Some of the cars are like parked. It's a storage unit, and they're parked so close to each other you can't even get around them to kind of see them. So I still remember that experience, but it was quite fascinating, honestly. You know.
Yeah.
So I want to do that once again. But yeah, no, I think this year, you know, it'll be quite exciting for him. There will be a lot of cool products, and I think some big surprises also. So yeah, super excited to see what they do.
Yeah, definitely. No, it's going to be a good year for M, for sure.
Cool. So we kind of sidetracked from M240i. So maybe you share what was your experience with the car, and I guess Nico can tell you more, and I can share mine as well.
Yeah, so for me, it's a special model for me personally. I think that car, because I kind of built my channel back in 2013 with my original M135i, and then there's the 235i, which really were standout models. I think those cars are going to go down as history, or at least BMW history, as very good, affordable cars that really sort of, I don't know, hit the UK anyway. Everyone had them. There's a real big sort of trend to have them. So when obviously the new 1 Series was launched 3 years ago, whatever it was, we all knew that it was on the mini platform. We weren't going to be getting this 6-spot or, B58, whatever it would have been. So that was an instant disappointment for so many previous 135 owners or 140 owners, etc. So this 240 is a real anticipated car for me, and I had high hopes, and I was very excited about driving it. I went out to the Munich media drive, whenever it was, October last year, I think. And like a lot of these launches, you don't have the car. I had it for like a few hours. And when you're trying to film, you really get very little time behind the wheel. But from the time that I spent in the car, I really enjoyed it. I mean, if anything, it's almost too capable. It does everything so well. It's lightning fast. I think I timed it with my race box, but with rollout on. But I think I timed it at 3.8 to 62, which my M2 competition wouldn't dream of getting anywhere close to that, because obviously the rear wheel drive and it just felt fantastic. It felt like a little muscle car. But as I say, it almost did or does everything too good. It feels amazing. And to me, I was instantly thinking, wow, if this is the M240i, the M Lite, as it were, what's the M2 going to be like? How capable is that car going to be? How good is it going to be? But I think it's going to be a great seller. Over here, they're about 50 odd thousand, so a bit less than, let's say, the RS3, but then it's not a full M car. Mm-hmm. But I think it offers every bit as much performance as the new RS3. And yeah, I was impressed with it, but I think it does lack. It just lacks a little bit. Obviously, the sound in the UK, they're going to be really quiet, like very, very quiet, like the German one I tried. I think, people will probably put exhaust on them and do what they did with the previous generation. But yeah, overall, I was very impressed with it. But like I said, it almost felt a bit too grown up. Whereas, like, let's go back to an M140i. That thing's a bit of a riot. It's a bit naughty. It will bite your head off if you're not careful. Whereas the 240, the xDrive 240 is just like a rocket ship, really impressive.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it is a great car. It's it feels like it's, aside from the M cars, like the M3, because I love the new M3 and the new M4. I think they're brilliant, but I think the M240i is the only like standard BMW that really feels like a proper BMW to me. I haven't actually driven the 230i yet, but that one feels like the M240i. It's the right size. It's small. It has great visibility. I love, in small BMWs, I'm small, so the seating position works pretty well for me. I can imagine. I know you're quite tall. Both of you are quite tall, so it might, not be great for you. But for me, it worked. The seating position is great. The windows are tall. You get great visibility. It's the right size. You could see over the hood. It just felt like such a real weapon, like such a real driver's car. I liked it a lot more than I thought I was going to, because I've heard so many things like you say it's so capable. It is so incredibly capable, and oftentimes that can remove a lot of the fun. That can take away a lot of the engagement, because it's doing so much underneath the surface for you. But it didn't feel that way. And I'm sure it is doing all those things. I'm sure I'm not as good of a driver as I think I am. So it is doing all those things, but it doesn't feel too artificial. And I really, really enjoyed that about it. So I agree. It's so capable, but at the same time, it's also really quite fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, to me, I think it feels like it's so close to the current M2 competition when it comes to the driving experience. I mean, it's not, a full M car, but it's getting really, really close to that. So that leaves a gap for the next generation M2, basically a little bit wider. So I can expect that car to be a lot more fun to drive on, a lot sportier. But I had a lot of fun with the car. I mean, we do get the the US exhaust here, so it sounds really good actually. I love that. It's also a really good daily driver. I mean, I haven't driven it, like every day, but the chances that I had to drive the car, it just felt like a really good daily driver. Basically, the comfort mode, it's spaced out, like with most new BMWs, it's spaced out so much from the Sport Plus or Sport. So if you want to use it like a daily driver, even throughout the city or terrible roads, it's quite capable. I don't think most of us will ever get to experience its full capability unless you go on track, which I did go on track actually in Palm Springs. And I'm telling you, I mean, I was doing back-to-back M5 CS, M3, M4, 230i, M240i, and out of all of them, I had the most fun in the M240i. I mean, the other cars were capable, but they were so much bigger, and I've always been a better driver on track with a smaller car. For some reason, I managed to control the power a lot better with that. So I had so much fun. I think I still have footage I haven't put out there because I was so focused on driving. I was trying to talk at the same time, and it's not easy. But yeah, it was yeah, exactly. Not even close to Chris Harris. But it you know what? As a side note, it looks so easy when they do it, but every time you try to go on track and do it and talk at the same time, you can. So the trick, someone recently told me, actually, Matt, a Canadian guy, great guy. He said, just go flat out for a couple of laps and then just go slow for the next two and pretend like you're going fast and just, talk about the car. Yeah. Because otherwise you're not going to be able to do it unless you're like a super pro. Yeah.
So, I'd have been dead a long time ago if I tried to talk while sliding on a track.
I mean, you're not. I mean, you have a lot of room to like on those tracks. But the problem is that if you're following the lead car and there is somebody else with you in that formation, then you're gonna slow them down. So that's the worst thing, right? Because you might have a really good, journalist driver, behind you, and then you're just slowing them down, or in front of you, so then they have to wait for you. So that's kind of the main issue. So sometimes I'm waiting till there is nobody, so I can just go with the lead car and just do that. But yeah, so aside from that, yeah, honestly, fantastic car. So much grip also from that xDrive system. It does feel a little bit heavier than the previous generation, but to me, it's a far more refined car. The design doesn't bother me too much, but when I saw the car the first time, it didn't really bother me. It was just different, right? I mean, it's a unique design, and I'd rather have that design than to have a mini M4, for example, right, or something else. And
I think
it really doesn't bother me.
I think the design's going. It's another one of those radical, or not radical. Well, it is kind of radical, I guess, because it's different.
It is great,
and I'm already seeing people coming around to liking it, and I'm already seeing comments of people going, "Oh, actually, I'm beginning to like," or people that have seen it in real life, just like when the M3 and M4 came out. People that saw it in real life were like, "Oh, actually, it makes a lot more sense in person." And I think the same with the rear end's questionable, and I was there at the launch, and the designer was there, and we were looking at his sketches, and the sketches look like the rear end sketch that he's got looks incredible, but it didn't quite translate to the real car.
There is a story behind that.
Oh, okay. I suppose.
So the initial design, and I think we've said it before, so it's not really news for some of us, but the initial design had the taillights, the typical L shape. So basically you had this, vertical lines, and that was the one that was supposed to go into production. And you're absolutely right. The sketches are amazing. The rear end, like so nice. But I guess there were some decisions made somewhere within the design team at some point that they want to change that. So, but that's kind of the backstory. But initially, I think that's what the original designer wanted to do. Basically, just have those, vertical tail lights, and it does look a lot better that way. And also the shape was a little bit different, so you can see that. But then again, I mean, always sketches look so much better than the production car when it goes into factory.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It's not a. I mean, we all like to complain about new designs, but then at the same time, if we go back 10 years ago, every time I was complaining that the F30 looks like a F10 5 Series or like a F01 7 Series, whatever it was called, and they didn't like that. They were kept saying that they're just like Audi, having the same sausage, different length, right? So now when they're different, people don't want that. So of course it's controversial, but if you see the car in real life, like you said, and especially in Thunder Night Metallic, as Nico said, in his video, it just matches the car, and it's absolutely fine.
Yeah.
I definitely started to like it a lot more in person. I didn't love it when I saw it at first in pictures, and then in person, I still don't like absolutely love it, but I like it enough. Like I would buy one actually if I could afford it. Like it's just they're cool looking little cars, and in purple, it's amazing. Like how do you not love a purple car? So
Yeah,
it's just great.
Yeah, but I think the only problem with the purple color, I was talking to a friend of mine. I can't mention his name because no one knows that he's ordered one. But good friend of mine, and he's gone for the purple. And I think the purple, I call it the Long Beach blue effect. You know when the original M2 came out in 2016,
Yes.
and everyone went Long Beach blue. Don't get me wrong, it's an amazing color. But then it was like everything was Long Beach blue, and I went black with my original M2, and I was so glad I did because. But then now down the track, when I see, or if I see an M2 competition, they hardly sold any Long Beach blues in that model. So when you see one now, I'm like, oh yeah, that's cool. But in 2016, I was just like, oh, I don't want a Long Beach blue. Everyone's got one. And I think it will be the same with the M240i. By the end of, let's say, or this time next year, everyone will be like, "Oh, I'm not going purple," because I've seen them everywhere. But yeah, it's a great color, isn't it? And the cognac interior. I know, someone that's gone for purple exterior, cognac interior, and it's like, that's
bold.
Yeah.
I guess that's the point of launch car colors. Basically, I guess they picked them so they want people to buy more of that color. I don't know how they choose those colors for the launch products, but it's always interesting to see the choices.
The only problem with the M240i's is it's not special enough of a car. So like the M2 is probably smart to get in Long Beach blue, even if it's played out a little bit, because later down the line, if you want to buy used ones, those will be the ones that'll be worth a lot because it's the desirable one.
Yep.
But M240i, I don't know if it's going to be the same because it's not like, a proper M car. It's not a super special car, but, I could see why people do go with the launch colors in special cars because it's the one that is in everyone's head so that in 10, 15 years when they want to get one, that's the one that has the most value. It's the most desirable one.
Yeah.
But I don't know about the M240i though. I don't think it's special enough.
I think an all black M240i with the smoked taillights, I think it looks fantastic. Some black wheels on it. I think that will look really mean. So,
all black everything.
Yeah. Exactly. So that was a great car.
So
right, Joe, I think we
I don't know how much time you have, Joe, but I was just going to ask one more question if you have the time.
Yeah, of course, absolutely.
So I wanted we need to touch on some electric cars because I know you have some strong feelings on them.
1 second. My headphones have just stopped working.
Probably the electricity from the Super Bowl commercial.
Happen,
I think you got zapped by Zeus.
So I have to ask you your thoughts on because you drove the you did drive the i4 M50, right?
Yeah. Yep.
All right. So I haven't yet, but Horatio has. So we can start a little discussion about that and your feelings about that, and kind of the future of BMW's electric performance cars, and we can take it from there.
I mean, I'm a bit of an old, stubborn man that doesn't want to accept that the future is electric. I'm living in denial, I guess. So if you bear that in mind, I have got this slight negativity in my head whenever I touch an EV. It's always something, and I have to say, like the i4, I know it's based on the 3 Series platform, so it's not an all-electric car. It's not built from the ground up. And when you consider that and everything else, I think it's actually a really impressive. It's a really impressive car. And my video, I did a video on it. It's done a lot, 200,000 views or something now. And people that actually listen and watch that video, whether they've got one in order or whether they're pro EV or whatever, if they've listened to it, they'll go, everything you say is honest and completely right. But people, there's a lot of, as we know, like Tesla sort of, crazy. They're almost like, they're almost like from Tribe. They're almost like, I don't know, they're cults or whatever. And they don't hear anything.
Oh, it's a cult.
If they hear anything negative, then they hate you and your review's wrong and you're full of rubbish and et cetera, so you just get attacked. But I think
I know all too well, my friend, all too well.
Yeah, I'm sure you do. So I think I approached that car thinking I wasn't going to enjoy it, but actually, I really enjoyed the car as a means of transport, as an A to B. It was comfortable. It was familiar to me. Obviously, it's got the new interior, which on the whole I really like. So this is going to be the interior we're going to see in the LCI 3 Series and 4 Series. And on the whole, I like that wraparound screen, and I don't like the fact that they've got rid of the climate control buttons and put them on a screen. They're not as bad as the ones that are in the Audi where you have to look down, but you still have to look at a screen. And as we all know, when you're driving along, especially on a UK road, and you're bumping and the car's moving around, etc., it's really difficult to play with controls like that. I always think there should be some controls that are buttons. But again, I'm sure that the younger generation would prefer it all to be on one big screen like their phone. So, yeah, like cabin-wise, really liked it. The way it did things, it was great. You know, the way it got me from A to B was real, like peaceful and quiet and no creaks. And I mean, the technology, when you think the limited time that they've had to build these cars in almost a bit of a panic in some cases, and considering that's on an ICE platform, I think they've done a fantastic job. The 4 Series Grand Coupe, again, I don't think's the best. It's very, the rear cabin's very cramped, very tight. The rear doors are like about that big. Like even Nico would have an issue trying to get in there. But for me, I'm just like,
Maybe.
I don't know how you get anyone in there. But then you've got the nice big boot and stuff. But in terms of an absolute driver's tool, yeah, it's fast in a straight line, the M50i. It's really fast. It's weirdly fast. I don't like the way EVs just, you put your foot down and there's just no drama, it just goes. I don't like that personally because you can't feel that build of power and torque. It's just like go. And you can feel everything scrabbling for grip and you're gone. And that wears off to me very quickly. In any of the fast EVs, it's like, okay, well, I've done it 3 times now. I feel sick, so do my passengers. What else is there to the car? And there's not the real truth for me, as far as I'm concerned. There isn't much else to the car. It's I think the i4 40, which I'm getting next week, the xDrive, so the 2-wheel driver. I think that will be a very good car because that's going to be quick enough. It's still going to have whatever power that's there immediately, like all EVs. It's a chunk cheaper and it's got a much bigger range. And in my head, at least, if you're going for something like that, at the moment, while we still have combustion engine cars available, if you're going for something like that, then go for the one that has a longer range and costs less money. Because the M50, I can't get my head around that. And it's the same with any of the iX6 M60, is it? That as well. It's like surely the 50, the 50 is definitely quick enough. Mm-hmm. But right. I don't know. Again, but I guess it's at the same time, it's got a BMW M have still got to exist. And I know that over the past few years, the M lights are merging into M, and it's all very confusing, especially some of the marketing and even the press. I know a number of journalists that went to our event, and the little press release or the little the product people that talked to us on the screen, they made it very confusing with the i4 M50. They kind of labeled it as an M car, but it's not an M car. And I think that's another slight issue that I have, that they're just dragging certain cars up to the, but it's not an M car, it's an M performance car, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with an M performance car. As we talked about, in many ways, an M240i is a much better daily than the M2 is going to be. You know, it's a more livable car. Mm-hmm. But I think there's just a fine line between, like, where does everything sit? But yeah, anyway, I've gone off on a tangent. I'm impressed with it. I think it's an interesting car, and I think if I lived where I used to live, or if I worked in London and I needed to go into the congestion zone to avoid paying £15 a day, I would have an electric car, whether it be the i4 or something smaller. And I think at the moment, again in the UK, the majority of electric car owners are either company car users, because they pay basically nothing on their tax for the car. So having like let's say an i4 M50 would cost them less than half of a 330e, even like a hybrid, let alone an M3 that would just be like, you know, £1,000 a month more in tax. So there's that reason for it, that most people own these, you know, lovely electric cars. And the other reason is just avoiding things like, if you're in London, congestion charge, ULEZ, all these, even parking and stuff is a lot cheaper. So they're really pushing it, but that will slowly change. You know, electricity is going up massively over the next 12 months here. We all, you know, found out that's going to continue to go up. And then all of these, like the government grants have been pulled, so you don't get government grants on electric cars. The company car tax will have to start going up because someone's got to make money. So it'll be interesting over the next few years to see how everything transitions, because at the moment it makes a lot of sense to have an EV for many people financially, and that's what's pushing them in. But when that levels out, like it has in Australia, where they get charged, in Australia they get charged mileage tax on their EVs. So the minute they drive off in their EV, they're getting charged mileage tax, because the government has obviously got to make money. So I think it'll be an interesting few years to see what happens. But I really hope that by 2030, they not push it back, because you can't now. But I hope that hybrids, I hope they have a bit more of an accepting sort of view on hybrids and other vehicles. And depending on where you live or where you're using the car, I hope there's different scenarios and rules and regulations, because I wish they'd just focus on big cities like London and Manchester and stuff and try to electrify them, and then slowly work their way out, you know, make it realistic. Because I think London full of electric cars would be awesome. Like, it'd be lovely to go around, it'd be quieter, it'd be greener, there'd be less immediate pollution. You know, the pollution's coming from somewhere else. But yeah, anyway, I've gone off on a bit of a tangent.
That's interesting.
So
no, you brought some good points, honestly, and I got a couple of thoughts, unless Nico wants to jump in.
No, I didn't drive the car, so I'd rather you.
I mean, it's not even about the driving experience. I think what I wanted to touch on was really the i4 M50. So I feel like they use that car as a marketing tool, right? So they're trying to show that eventually the M brand will be electrified and we'll have a fully electric M car. So that's why you keep seeing that car being pushed, you know, to the front. They're just trying really to promote the M brand with electrification. So it's really just marketing, honestly, and everybody probably does it in their own field, trying to promote certain products and the messaging and all of that. But I agree, my choice would be also the i440, basically because of the additional range, and you're not losing much as far. I mean, performance-wise, yes, you're losing a little bit, but you won't really be able to tell the difference in normal driving. So that'll be my choice too. But the other point that I wanted to make was really that the fact that we're thinking about this, you know, extinction of combustion cars, basically, but it's not happening anytime soon. I don't even think it's going to happen by 2030 for most brands. They all talk about that, and even though they might push it, you're still going to be able to buy a combustion car in the next few years. So in my case, the way that I say it is, if you have the means, if you have the money to afford two cars, and I feel like if you look at, market by market, it's different, but in the US, most people have two cars. I feel like you could always have a combustion engine car for the next 20, 30 years and still be quite reliable. Like, my car, it's, the 1M, it's 12 years old and it's still fine. So you can have an electric car, basically. So it's not like you have to trade, fun for electric cars. You can have two. You keep your car, keep your M3 or 240i for the next 20 years and then, drive an electric car. So I'm not too concerned, and I don't have this fear like, oh my God, we're going to lose the driving experience. No, you can still buy, even then, even in 10 years, you're going to be able to buy a used combustion engine car, right? And I don't know what the prices will be. I don't know how the market is going to go. They're going to go higher, going to go lower. Who knows? But bottom line is, it's not the end of the game for combustion cars. And then as far as the incentives, you're absolutely right. They will be phased out at some point because you're getting those incentives right now in order for the adoption rate to increase. That's why in Germany, when I go, I see a lot of plug-in hybrids. I think we had a guest also to say the same thing. You see a lot of plug-in hybrids because they're so affordable after all the incentives. And in the US market also, now Tesla that phased those incentives out, last year or 2 years ago. I think the other automakers will eventually hit that cap also, and you're not going to have that. So then the prices will be quite equal. So that will change for sure. Electricity, I don't know how that's going to affect. I mean, our grid in the US, it's not that great either. So that will be definitely a challenge for all the automakers.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're okay though in terms of grid, right? In the U.S. because we have like, I mean, I was just listening to a podcast with Chris Harris, and he brought up a good point that the U.S. seems to be where the majority of not the majority of EV sales, like percentage wise, but where the push for EVs seems to be the most. You know, you have Tesla, you have new companies like Lucid, GM, Ford. They're all pushing EVs really hard, and it's because our infrastructure has been set up pretty well. Like we have a lot of, you know, Tesla supercharger networks and Electrify America network, and you know we have all that stuff. I can imagine that in the UK, because from what I hear from, you know, other UK journalists, that the grid is difficult. You know, like the network isn't established yet. So yeah, I think you're right in terms of, you know, it's going to be a city car thing in a lot of European cities for a while, you know, electric cars. And then outside of that, you got to keep your gas engines. And then Horatio's right at the same time, you know, internal combustion is going to last for so long.
Yeah.
So,
Oh,
I mean, it's
good. I totally agree.
Oh, no, continue.
No, I totally agree with what Horatio was saying. And my only fear, I think, is like running costs for these, like fuel costs, for instance. I paid £1.70 a litre of super unleaded the other day. So it cost me nearly £100. No, probably more, £110 to fill my M3 up. £110. Wow. So that's just fuel. And then you've got the road, we get road tax every 12 months. You've got to tax your car. And that's been going up like at an angle like that. And that's before you start throwing in like actual regulations and whatever else in order to keep these cars. So I think they will live on, but I think sooner or later they'll become toys for the rich, and probably only, you know, you could probably only use them on various track days and stuff. But like you said, I think the main thing is we're not going to get to 2030 and suddenly like boom, there's no combustion engine cars.
Yeah. It's not going to fall.
No, yeah, let's hope not. So
that is a real concern, though, that the internal combustion engine might become a toy for the rich.
Yeah,
that is. I've heard that, you know, the sentiment from a few people before, that, you know, once EVs become a commonplace, fuel prices are going to, you know, go through the roof, and, you know, taxes are going to go crazy. So that does, you know, scare a lot of
people,
proper car enthusiasts.
Yeah.
I did a rate conversion right now as you guys were chatting, so it's about $150 to fill up the tank on that M3. How many gallons? 12?
I don't work in gallons, but liters. That's about 50 liters, I think. Yeah, 50
liters. Okay, so about 12, 13 gallons then. So what's the premium price, Nico, right now? Of course, I haven't put gas in a car in a long time.
$4 per gallon by me.
Okay. So we're paying $50 versus $150 to fill up the car.
And that does get a bit.
Yeah, and we're still complaining. And we're still complaining.
You got to come over here. You know what? Go get your M3 touring and bring it over.
And fill it up. Yeah, that's my business plan. Right. So if I drive there, I'll save £100 on fuel, but it would cost me about $5,000 to get out there. But yeah, no,
I think that's why some YouTubers come to the US and do these long road trips.
Tim seems to live out there. It's like his second home. I'm very envious of, but it's just this time of year. He's just like, God, he's always out there in the sunshine in Miami, here, there.
Because of California.
But yeah, I just think,
I got to get him on that.
You need to,
podcast
100%.
I
would love to, and he's a proper, as you know, he's a knowledgeable guy about any brand, but especially he has got a soft spot for BMW. Although, actually, because you need to ask him about his M3. He's kind of fallen out of love with that car. So that'd be an interesting topic.
Really?
Yeah,
I gotta find out.
But yeah, just going back to the EV thing quickly, I think so. My other half, as I think I've mentioned before, she works for Audi UK, which is quite ironic. It's a bit like you, Nico. Obviously, you do stuff with Audi and BMW, the dark side.
A little bit, a little bit.
And so I think her next company car, she gets one every 6 months or so. Her next company car is looking like it's definitely going to be an EV, if not the one after that. So let's say in the next 12 months, she's going to have an EV. And that's actually music to our ears and my ears as well, because I can't think of anything better than me having my fun, silly cars that cost 150 quid to fill up or whatever, £100 plus. But her car that we can use for our daily stuff, And if we are going away to Wales for the weekend, then why would we not take the M3 anyway? So I think in that scenario, if you've got the setup, then that's brilliant. Just the thought of having this electric car that either of us can use, and it costs essentially not much anyway. She can charge it at work and whatever.
Right.
Then that's great. That's a brilliant setup. But obviously, I get that that's financially not possible for everyone. And if it is the one car, then it still kind of makes sense to have your one petrol or diesel engine car if you can.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, can you charge? Do you have access to charging at home?
Not very good here, but we're moving. We're moving into our sort of this. I'm actually at Lou's house. I've lived here for the last year because I moved out of mine about 12 months ago. So we're looking at getting our own sort of house, which will consist of a garage and a driveway and stuff, and a setup that will be much easier for an electric car. Because obviously that's the other thing, isn't it? It's having the facilities to. You go into London. I was in London just before New Year's, and I was walking around the streets where I grew up, and the setups you see cables coming out of like second floor windows and then going across the pavement with no signage or anything, just cable, and it's just like wow, look at what. Yes,
I saw a photo on your Instagram.
Well, I was like,
I remember
if
now,
I tripped here and broke my neck, like who's responsible for that? And it is like that in London. It's a real melee of things going on because the charging network in London is pretty poor, especially when you factor in that London taxis are all now, well, not all, but they're becoming electric. So there's a large percentage, I don't know, maybe 50% of taxis so any charging station has got a taxi on it. Because obviously they're driving all day long. So trying to find somewhere to charge up in London is actually a lot harder than it is in a place like where I live in a sort of countryside or whatever. So yeah.
Very cool.
All right, man.
This was a great chat as always. I feel like there was a lot more to talk about, but we can save that for the next time. I think there'll be a lot more cars to drive till then.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I don't want to take up too much of your time today. We already took up a bunch, so I know it's a lot later, there than it is here. So
no, it's perfect timing. My dinner's going to be ready in about 8 minutes. So
oh, perfect.
Nice. All right.
But no, as always, it's been absolutely awesome speaking to you both and talking about my favourite subject, BMWs. It'd be really. I can't wait for the day that we actually do all meet each other in real life and. We'll have nothing to say. We'll be like,
I mean, hopefully you're coming. Hopefully you're coming to the US soon, because I mean that might be an easy one for us to just fly wherever you are and do some stuff together. I don't know if you have anything planned in the future, but let us know.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah. If you ever come to the US,
I mean, I'm sure there will be some stuff this year from BMW also. But maybe even if you come with other brands, we can always meet up and maybe get a couple of BMW cars, press cars, and do some stuff. I mean, there's so many things to do, honestly, and. There's some amazing drives. Just to end with this, I was watching yesterday a video of a Bronco.
The new Bronco.
And they were driving through a canyon somewhere where basically it was so narrow that you have to pull the mirrors in and all of that. And I was thinking, it would be kind of cool to have like an X7 or something to do that. Some big wheels, and cool stuff. It was quite exciting. So that's something that we can plan
definitely.
out next time.
That would make me a bit nervous with the fancy X7. Yeah.
I mean, that's kind of the only. I mean, I guess the X5 could do it with the off-road package. Think about the X7.
Still, I would be cringing the whole time, worried about scratching the fancy Bronco. Who cares? It's meant to do that. But that would be
have
fun.
to wrap the car.
Yeah.
Cool. All right, Joe. Always a pleasure. Continue doing the good work. I appreciate the videos.
Yeah.
Always linking to them.
You guys too.
Stuff.
And hopefully see you this year.